This time, let's create a 3D model of a planet, something that looks kind of like Saturn. So we'll have a main planet, we'll have some sort of ring going around said planet, and then we'll have a moon off orbiting as well. So let's go ahead and get creating. We'll start off with the default Blender file again, and just like I did in the last one, I'm going to delete everything by pressing A twice to select everything, hitting X to delete, and confirming the deletion. From here, let's start with the actual planet itself. In order to create the planet, all we'll do is add a sphere, because planets are spherical. So we'll press Shift A, come to our mesh category, and select UV sphere. Now we have a sphere in our scene. Next, we need to create those rings. And in order to create those rings, we'll start off with a torus. And a torus is a shape that kind of looks like a donut. So, in order to add that, we'll press Shift A, come to our mesh category, and select torus. You'll notice that off the bat, the torus is intersecting with our sphere. And honestly, this isn't something that we really want. So, in order to add some space between the torus, which will be our rings, and the planet, we'll scale it up a little bit. So we'll press S and move our cursor out. And you can see that as we do that, we get further away from our planet and there's no longer any sort of collision between the two. You will, however, notice that our ring around the planet is very fat. And when you look at actual pictures of a planet, this ring is actually pretty thin. It looks like a razor blade compared to the size of the planet. So we have to somehow shrink this down. In order to do that, all we need to do is scale it along the Z-axis. So we'll press S, followed by Z to scale along the Z-axis, and then we'll move our cursor in. And you can see that we can make this nice and flat. So it's a nice disk going around our planet. The last thing I talked about adding was some sort of moon. So we'll add another UV sphere. But before we add the UV sphere, I want to move the 3D cursor out of the existing UV sphere. That way things don't get confusing. So I'll use whatever button I don't use for select. In my case, that's going to be my left click to position the 3D cursor somewhere outside of this center UV sphere. We'll press Shift A, come to Mesh, and select UV sphere. Then we'll scale this down because obviously we don't want a moon the same size as a planet. We'll scale it down to be about that big. And then we can use our transform modulators here to move this around, say to right there. And now we have a beautiful planet with a moon and some rings. Just like that, we've already created our second 3D model ever in Blender. So if you'd like to, you can save this one as well by coming up to File, selecting Save, and then choosing where you'd like to save it. I'll call my 3D model Planet, and click Save Blender File in the upper right. Now we have two 3D models successfully completed.